everybody. So hopefully we're back, and then we're gonna open up the chat here in a second as soon as I see the channel pop up, and here we go. But we'll go from there.
We're waiting to see what this live's hitting. So soon, you want me to wait, Aaron, to finish up?
No, looks like we're back.
All
Looks like
right,
we are
baby.
back, baby. Continue.
So I was talking about ROEs. What is it going to take for me to shoot somebody? And so one of the things that I got warned from the local sheriff was there was a lot of looting going on. Jay addressed it, and we hadn't been in the drive. We had a 2-hour drive up there. We were 10 minutes into the drive, so we hadn't had that. Okay, what are our ROEs, right? Like, what are we willing to do? What risks are we going to take? Obviously, both of us are going home. Okay, like I'm not going out to Henderson, North Carolina to get shot up and not come home. Okay.
Right.
So,
yep.
But then, I had this conversation with Jay was, how do you present yourself to the public, right? Do you have your drop leg holster on with your pistol in it and your AR slung? Or is everything in a concealed position so that you're not raising awareness to the fact that you're armed? We had that conversation, right? Like, do you want to have slung long guns walking around, right? Now, there's some situations. We're in the South, okay? We're 2 African Americans, and there ain't a lot of black people in Henderson, North Carolina. I got told that.
And let me tell you something else. There's been tons and tons and tons of reports all over, not just Henderson, right? All over North Carolina, this stuff happening. And let me tell you, man, when people get desperate, when people are fighting for their lives, the lives of their family, man, man, if it came down to my family, what wouldn't I do? If I had to leave my house in 15 feet of water and I had to somehow by hook or by crook get to somewhere, somebody's dying back at my house and I see 2 guys that are walking around and they look like they have a bunch of loot. You guys look like loot drops, and I can see a bunch of expensive equipment. You guys got all the gear. If you think for a second that I wouldn't consider doing something to protect my family, I don't know what to tell you. I do not know what to tell you. I get, like, it's a terrible thing about human nature, but it's a true thing about human nature, and it is what it is.
And we always got a plan for human nature. That's the, because I'm a realist, right? Like, do I want it to happen? But I'm prepared just in case it does, right? Because there's always that 1% chance that human nature is going to kick in. You know what I mean? And I'll be damned if I'm left naked, when it does, know? So,
yeah. So, Aaron, one of the things that I thought through, Jay, is exactly what you're saying was, we get to his house and he's not home. Do we open the door? Knowing that he's a country dude, nope.
Yeah.
I said, nope.
Nope. No, sir.
I said, I'm going to leave a note on his door, right?
Yeah.
Like I had already been through that stuff. The other thing I said that I needed in this situation was one of them Red Cross vests that has the big cross on the front and the big cross on the back. That was one of the things, like, in this morning when I was thinking about some stuff that could kind of mitigate risk a little bit. Let me look a little bit more official than just a dude with gear on and a nice backpack and walking through, whatever the war zone or the place was. Because that was kind of my after action, like, thinking.
So the first thing I did, like, when I got home, I was like, okay, I'm still in North Carolina. I know there's a big military presence out that way already helping. So I found my PT shirt with big old, like, army right across.
Oh, man. Yeah. Fly that flag, homie. Man, if it stops me for getting shot, like, I don't know if I'm wearing, maybe I throw on multicam for the first time, since I've been out. Like, maybe I do throw on some dumb orange vest or something that identifies me, at least as somebody that's, man, at least, from 100 meters away, at least if I can show somebody, hey, man, I'm not a threat. I might be part of some sort of organization that might be here to help. Please don't shoot me because you think I'm trying to come on your land and take your stuff. Man, that might be a good time to do it. But holy crap, man, it's so complex. So complex.
Yeah.
Incredible.
But either
complex.
way, like, we are ready to work through it. You know what I mean? Because, again, like, as situation develops, and before I go into that, like, I just want to, like, for everybody watching in the audience, like, I can't hit on the concept of brotherhood enough, right? Just because, like, I want you guys to understand, just because you're not in the military doesn't mean that you shouldn't experience that as a civilian.
You're right.
Right? Because at the end of the day, between the 4 of us on here, at any given time, all it takes is a text and we're showing up, right? And that's truly something special to have. So if you're a civilian out there and you don't have that, then I encourage you to go out and find it. It doesn't have to be you joining the military or the police force or firefighter. It's just be within your community, right? You get a group of dudes together and you guys have a poker night, or you guys, go hunting together. Somebody aside from you that like no shit, when it goes down and you need somebody, they're gonna show up, right? Like that's something that everybody should have. And if you don't, man, like I encourage you to go out and build it. You know what I mean? Like for us, it didn't take long, right? Like we're bound by military service. Like at any given time, like we met like 3 or 4 months ago. You know what I mean? Like Jake and I just met. Aaron and I just met, and Ben, like we just met him also. So, but we have the services on our side, right? So it worked out pretty good. So yeah, if you don't have that, man, just go out and start building like that community to where if you're out and about states away and you need help, all it takes is a text and somebody's showing up, right? So I encourage you guys to go find that if you don't already have it.
And I'm gonna expound on that, Jay, because I think one of the things that I understand is what I'm capable of, right? And what I'm not capable of. So I've been watching a lot of surgery stuff after my trip with Aaron down there, right? And what I've realized is like, I don't care how much I study, I'm not gonna be able to save my 8-year-old's daughter life if he gets shot, right? Like I need an Aaron there. And so everywhere I've went, because I traveled for football a lot, I've set up like, okay, so in Champaign, I had a Green Beret that lived 30 miles outside of town on a 100-acre farm, nowhere. That was the rally point. We had a former Marine who had 3 combat deployments. We had a pediatrician, and her husband was a oncologist. Okay.
Perfect for the both of them. Dang.
And
okay.
Both
Got
of them
it.
are super cerebral. And I said, hey, what do y'all think about joining this team? And they were like, oh yeah, this is awesome. Right. And so you got to put together a team that kind of supplements you, like you're saying, like in town here, San Antonio, like I got another Green Beret, Daryl, but he just moved to Houston. But I got 2 Army Rangers. I got a West Point grad. I got my PA that took care of my kids when they were first born. And he tried to tell me he was going to drive to Canada. And one hurricane later, he made it 60 miles outside of town. And then he called me back. It's like, I'm on the team now. Like you ain't driving nowhere,
Right. Yeah.
And the one thing that I thought about, like I can fly, but starting a damn airplane is a problem. So I just found a great airplane that can hold 12 people. I'm like, ooh, that's perfect, right? I just got to get to it before anybody else gets to it. But then I was like, well, man, you need to add a pilot. So my homeboy got a pilot that lived with him. So I reached out to him and said, hey, man, but he's always flying. So the chances of him being here aren't very good. But then he put me on another pilot that's always here. So just stuff to think about that you.
My little brothers and I. Oh yeah, my little brothers and I joke about that all the time. I got a fixed wing pilot and rotary wing pilot in my family, and if we don't talk about Aaron from Ken, Aaron doesn't look like he wants to do this podcast anymore. Well, Ken, you're mistaken. This is the most fun I have all week. You have sorely mistaken. You apparently don't know the Aaron face very well. No, but to speak on the community, man, it presents itself in the weirdest places. Right down the street, there's an awesome little grocery store, and in that grocery store, there's a bar. It's a beer and a wine bar. You can go sit down, have a beer and wine. You can go, buy sushi, from the spot, and then you can sit down and you have a beer. They have a dudes night every other Friday night. Every other Friday night, just dudes in the neighborhood. They meet up down there. They have a bar and they bullshit. You know how many good friends that I've made out of that place? And it sounds so cringy and so gay to say it, like coming out the gate, just be like, I'm going to go to the guys night down at the bar or whatever else. You're insane, man. That's how I met all these people. And if you don't have that, start one. You would be surprised.
Gotta have a tribe.
Dude,
yeah.
Start a Bible study. Hey, I'm going to have a guys night. We're going to take over this bar. We're going to have a couple beers. We're going to talk about stuff. We're going to make connections. We're going to make connections for business in the area. I'll tell you what, I know the 3 or 4 people on each side of me because we live at the end of a cul-de-sac. Guess what that is? That's the Alamo. We live in a gated community. I can see almost all the way down from this window right here. And also, this is an unrelated note, but there is a long gun with glass on it right here, standing right over there. But right out this window, I can look literally all the way down and I can see right where cars come into that. If you think that there wasn't a conversation one or two times where I look at the guys, I'm like, hey, man, I'm not saying that anything's going to happen. And I'm not saying we're ever going to need this, but I'll tell you what, if they do, I will tell you that I will be doing Overwatch on this right now. And there will be certain cars that come in and certain cars that don't. And if you guys like, that's going to be position one. And some guy was like, yeah, there's actually a gate right here that has ingress and egress, and all I got to do is cut it with my lock cutters, and we're going to be able to get out that way too. So I'm just saying, like, if we need to, we can all rally there and we can go. Man, I don't know. I think you have to build that tribe. And Jay, you're exactly right, man. You got to build that tribe. You have to have these people that you forge this brotherhood with. They're not just going to present themselves to you. You got to put yourself out there and go find them.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, like if we were to take it back all the way to like the caveman era, like we always like roll together, right? Like we would go hunt together. Like that's just how we're supposed to. We were designed to be like that. We were designed to be around other men. You know what I mean? And that's a concept that's gotten lost throughout time. We were lucky because we joined the military and we were around other fucking meat eaters. But the guys that leave their mother's house or their dad's house at 18 and go off to college and experience that, and then they they're out on their own experiencing the world, and they don't really have that tribe, man. Like they're really missing out. And during that entire debacle, like I realized, like, man, like for people like us that have that expertise, like when disaster like that hits, like it's hard to not get involved, right? To not mobilize and go help. So yeah.
And I will say too, like, man, I don't know. I've met Tim Kennedy like 2 times, right? I've talked to him. He doesn't know who I am. He doesn't know my face. He might be able to put it together and be like, oh, you're the PJ that I met a couple times, whatever. We run close enough. I'm friends with, some of his good friends. So, we're 1 degree of separation. I'm not trying to say I know Tim Kennedy. I'm saying that I don't know the man because I know that he gets a lot of shit, and there's stuff that he does that I don't necessarily agree with too, right? I got it. Okay. There's guys on my team that I don't necessarily like. Okay. There's, as I was going through, whatever, fine. It's not the point. But for everybody out there that's talking shit from their house, did you donate? Talking shit about Tim Kennedy or all these other people that have flooded the area and try to get in there now. We can talk about the nuances of should he be putting it on social media, or is he doing it to aggrandize himself, or is he making some sort of money off this? Okay, great. We can talk about those nuances, right? But in the end, it's like, in the end, is it an overall net positive or net negative? He's on the ground. He brought supplies. He's bringing attention to the matter. What are you doing? You're just flaming Tim Kennedy. Like, did you donate? Did you send any supplies? Did you do anything yourself? I want to be careful because I've seen a lot of that. Is like, oh, look at these dudes. Look at this dude. What's up?
Helene, I didn't realize he was down here doing that.
Yeah, Jay, because me and Jay had this conversation, right? I said,
oh,
Jay,
nice.
I would love to stream this whole fucking thing, right?
Yeah.
And Jay was like, man, we should take some vignettes and some videos. And I was like, nah, this ain't the place to do that. There's 200 bodies out here. You know what I mean? Like we had that kind of like, what do you think? Like, should we capitalize this for social media? And I was like, I can't do it right now. I'm not mad at Tim Kennedy. I ain't mad at what he's doing. If he bringing supplies, I don't care if he out there pubbing, like I thought about, the Diesel brothers, they got a fucking Black Hawk. What if they flew in there with a Black Hawk and just dropped off supplies and shuttled supplies in there? Is it bad that they're streaming it? I'm not mad at them if they helping. I just know for me, I wasn't going to do it. Right.
No.
Me and Jay talked about it. We're not going to do it. Like that's just
right.
I can't do that.
There are some folks like, I mean, there's a guy out there. His first name's John. I won't put his last name out there, but he actually made libs with TikTok. You may have seen, he's a bearded dude that's talking about the civilian rescues that are going on and how hard he's trying and how he feels the government is whatever. That guy is a former combat controller. That guy is a dyed-in-the-wool hard ass. We've had him on our podcast. I've talked to him a couple times before. The guy gives a shit, and he was so frustrated. And he's not like a social media dude. Like he's a broker of some sort, and then he does real estate in this other realm, right? Like that's his second life. But he was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get on here, but I'm left with no resort. And I got to get out here and talk to you. Here's who we are. Here's what we're trying to do. And here are the problems that we are. Man, there's a space for it. You know what I mean? And people are so quick right now to, if they see your face, dare talk about it with the backdrop of this stuff going on. They're like, oh, you're, politicizing this, or you're using it for your own personal good. Man, at this point, I'll take 100 Tim Kennedys. I'll take 100 people that are just doing it for if Mr. Beast decides to donate 100 million to this and he goes in and he decides that he's like, well, clean water. I'm going to find a way to get all the water out of here and I'm going to find clean water. Don't give a shit. Don't give a shit what your background is. Don't care, because Americans are dying as we're talking about it right now. And we need all the help we can get. We're going to hash all that other stuff out on the back end. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, a lot of nuance. Where is the money from FEMA? Where is the response from FEMA? Why was it 7 days late? Why are there reports of police officers stopping people from giving help under threat of arrest and or worse? Why does this look a lot like Lahaina? Why are the residents of Asheville only getting $750 each? There's a lot of questions that we need to talk to, but that's for another time, because we're on target right now.
Asheville is still unreachable. As of yesterday, when we were in town, they're like 10 miles away from Asheville, because Hendersonville is like 10 miles between them. And the sheriff was saying that they hadn't got to Asheville yet. They weren't able to get there yet.
But it blows my mind, man, because like Bragg is right here. Like Fort Bragg is literally like, I was 2 hours removed, right? So Fort Bragg, if you use and I know there's a 82nd Cav, like there's an aviation unit over there. Like, right. I feel like this,
man. Let me tell you,
Chinooks could land anywhere.
Let me tell you something. Let me tell you something a little bit more frustrating. I talked to a friend this morning. I know very good friends of mine, and I won't say from what unit or from where they came from. They had a 3 ship of 60s and an entire contingent of PJ crews ready to go. They've been ready for 7 days. They just got the okay today. They forward stage. They were like, no. This is like, we do it all the time, right? Because we own our own shit. We don't need you to say that you're okay. If I have a place to land that bitch, I'll put a team there, and then every day I'm going to be knocking on your door. Are we allowed to go yet? Are we allowed to go yet? You're going to give me clearance? You're going to let me go? Because I'm going to go. Okay. How about if I just go fly, but I don't go on the ground? What's your tolerance for that? How about if I just hoist people, but I don't actually go on the ground? What's your tolerance for that? How long am I allowed to go out? Like, you push that envelope the entire time. I will tell you, there's been rescue teams that have been pushed forward for whatever reason. They were not given the approval. And we're going to need those answers afterwards. And that's a lot of the questions, and I get it. People don't understand Title 10, Title 22, Title 32, a bunch of these other titles that it actually takes to get going. The president has, implicit and explicit control over FEMA and what it is that they can do. But that's a little bit different when you're including military assets. And, one of these things that we do have to talk about is there's a command and control aspect of it where it's great to have all these people in there. People keep asking about why no civilian drones in the area and whatever. And they're talking about shutting the airspace down. They're talking about restricting the airspace under threat of fines, penalties, and being arrested when you land an aircraft. Now, I will not make any assumptions on this because I don't know what's going on, but I will say airspace becomes a premium. When we go in somewhere, we have our JTAG make a ROZ, a restricted operating zone. And usually that's 5 miles up and 3 miles around where you're going, because we need to know who's coming in and coming out. When you have all these civilian helicopters and all these other cats and dogs that are flying in and out, it becomes a nightmare, because it's who owns it, who has priority, who's allowed to go in. And then you incorporate drones. Those dudes aren't on ATC freaks. Those people, you get a drone flying around that'll kill a helicopter. You fly a drone into the tail rotor of a helicopter and you're going to die and you're going to kill people. That's probably why. Now, of course, I can get as conspiratorial as you want. And we can talk about the government, whatever else, but it's not the time.
There's no excuse for what's going on, man. It took 7 days. As soon as me and the wife were joking about it, well, not joking about it, but we were speaking about it. The storm hit, Thursday evening was when it hit us. Because at 5 o'clock, my younger brother from Grovetown, he was texting me updates as far as how they were doing. And then Friday morning, I wake up, I check the property, everything's good to go. And me and the kids are, watching TV because school was out. And then we didn't hear about what was taking place on the western side of North Carolina until 3 or 4 days later. And then we were like, holy crap, while we were sitting at home, enjoying, TV and the comfort of our own home, these people were going through all of this and the news didn't cover it at all. So it's dude, as soon as this Friday it hit, we shouldn't have helicopters and all sorts of people. The governor should have went into state of emergency immediately. National Guard should have been mobilized. Helicopters should have been flying. Just think about the amount of people that died that could have been saved because of the lack of response. So and it's dude, what's the excuse for this? There is no excuse. It's incompetence.
Let me see this, Jay, because I'm gonna throw a little caveat in here, and I'm gonna rescue the government a little bit. Okay, when is the last time that Western North Carolina had to be concerned about a hurricane in the Gulf? Right.
Never.
This blows my mind as well. Like just the fact that this ran up through Tampa and then did not turn to go out seaward. It's almost always what happens in the Northern Hemisphere. They turn out seaward, and then they like the fact that it just stayed and went inland and still stayed strong enough in order to decimate North Carolina. Like,
so it dropped 29 inches of rain on that Western North Carolina parcel in 24 hours. 6 inches of rain causes a flood, and it dropped 29. Okay. Yeah. So I don't think anybody was prepared for the catastrophic nature. However, I agree with you, right? Much like Katrina hit, devastated a part of the country that's very well versed in hurricanes.
Right.
It was 7 days before any functioning body got into New Orleans, i.e. the Superdome and some of the big places that we heard about where there was just terror going on. Took them 7 days, right? I have a buddy that was in New Orleans 12 hours after the hurricane went through, okay? He drove by all of the National Guards stationed way out on the perimeter. They were told, we can't go in there. They tried to stop him. He just drove on through, okay?
I will tell you, PJ's out of Moody and I think Herbie, they did something ridiculous, like 800 saves before anybody said you were allowed to go in. Like they were just like, F it. We're just gonna fly over. So they would just see people on roofs. They would just bloop, bloop, bloop. And then like you would talk to the dudes. Like I have pictures of my friends riding Zodiacs, and they were just like, yeah, man. They just, nobody said that we could go, but then it was so chaotic that nobody said we couldn't go either. So we were just like, F it. There are people like, okay, well, you can slap our wrist later, FEMA, but we're not waiting for you. We're not doing these things. And we had some good commanders make some and I'm sure somebody got yelled at. I'm sure somebody got an ass chewing, but that's what you're seeing in North Carolina out of American citizens. You're seeing these guys like, no, we got to get in there right now. I don't care what you're doing. And that it's tragic, but man, it's hopeful. Like this,
and I will say this, Aaron, real quick. There were trailers rolling. I don't know if you saw them, Jay.
Yeah.
When there were trailers rolling that way, covered in water, covered in food, covered like I saw a trailer that it was all water bottles, and then the back half was like 4 igloo coolers, right? Like Cats was headed that way with resources from eastern part of North Carolina, and that's just on 85 what we saw. So I mean, it's America, bro. Like I tell everybody, like the one thing we can do is recover and then fight our way out of a problem. Like that's what we do well. Like, there's a ton of us like us. There's a ton of people in the country that have no problem putting themselves into danger to go help somebody in America. Like you're saying about the PJs and all that other stuff. Like we got so many, this goes back to some of our earlier conversations. We got so many resources in America that we fight over what resource to use instead of just using the resources to go fix the problem.
Right.
Yeah. But it was good to see though, man, because with all the division that's going on with the elections and all that crap, it was good to see like unification, as far as citizens helping citizens whenever they need it, as the government tries to unfuck itself. So it was reassuring. Like it was like it made me believe in America a little bit more. You know what I mean? Because it's hard to see it when you see all the political, bickering going back and forth, you know what I mean? But when you see stuff like that and you see people unite to save lives for a bigger purpose, like it's reassuring. Absolutely.
That was something I was trying to work through myself is I felt like this was a huge white pill for me. As cynical as everybody know, I'm a cynical dude by nature. I'm a skeptical dude by nature. And very often I'm a black pilled or a clown pilled guy, right? Like it just is who I am as a person. And it's tough for me to see this. This is tragic. It's a loss of life. It's affected friends and family that are close to me. I have people on both sides of the fence. I want to give a shout out to the AFSPAC war community. Those dudes, I'm on a group chat with a whole bunch of them, like 1,000 of them. And, there's another smaller group chat that's got about 250 dudes that are all kind of in that community. The only thing that's going off right now, and it's popping every single second. Hey, meet up at this location. We need people to do this. We need people in order to receive people that we're going out and finding. We have this helicopter, but we don't have any medics to go out there. We might need to put somebody on the ground over here this patient's too critical to move. We need somebody. Brother, all it is people flocking to that area. People driving north from Cocoa Beach. People driving north from Moody, people driving north from, Destin and all those places. And I'm sure people from, Bragg and all those other places. And that was something for me that even in this tragedy, even in this unsure time, to watch and see the potential of what America is, if we could just come together every once in a fucking while, man.
Yeah.
That gave me hope. And I
I'll
know
tell you what,
hope is a dangerous thing.
Something about, and you can add this same analogy to, the military, but like we all know, right? Like as siblings, you can grow up, fighting your younger brother or your older brother, right? Like you guys can't stand each other, but let somebody else outside the house pick on them or try to fight them, like it's game over, right? Because at the end of the day, it's the same thing with the military. Like we can joke on each other and clown on each other, Marine Corps this, Navy SEAL this, blah, blah, but we're downrange and one of us needs support. Guess what? Nope. We're there, right? And it's the same thing with this country, right? You got, civilians in need. It's like, hey, I don't care what the government is saying. I don't care what, like, Americans need us. Like, we have the skills and we're there and we're going to go help. At the end of the day, like that's how I like to look at it, right? Like we're always gonna show up, when we're needed. So, but yeah, folks, like I mentioned earlier in the chat, if you're just showing up, like if you guys donate to the cause, whatever you donate, I'll match. Because since it happened, like we've just been cleaning out Walmart, buying as much stuff as possible, and donating to the schools and all of that. So yeah, it's we got a long ways to go, but for sure we're gonna get there for sure.
Right. Yeah, and we got hope. Is there anything else we want to cover on this hurricane? We hit some good topics, man. And, for all those out there, because there's a big contingent of folks out there right now, all 75 of you, what's up? Thanks for helping us through the technical difficulties. 75. We appreciate you. Hey, not too bad for 3 nerds. We talk all the time about, well, what could I possibly do after the military? If I do special operations, like there's no PJ like on the back end, like there's no, there are some civilian places that only employ PJs and, whatever, they go do stuff. But, all that to say, like, this is what the military gives you. This is what special operations gives you. The ability to, in chaos, bring calm. The ability to be vulnerable and to be humble enough to know that, man, I forgot this waterproof bag, but knowing that you have a teammate that has your back, knowing that you have a teammate that even if you didn't, like, well, fuck it, we're going to figure it out. Okay, worst possible scenario, cats and dogs living together, worst parts of the Bible. Let's go. At least I got a buddy with me. At least I got my boy. If you guys would have been like, hey, man, we need you to come out here for North Carolina. Aaron, I need you to come out here. Sorry. Tara and young man Samuel and young puppy missed, but I got to go because that's what we got to do. And that's all it takes. Those are the type of skills. At the
end of the day, like it's wild because the wives just know, right?
Oh,
As soon as I called my wife, I was hey, Jake's coming into town. Like, you got this? She was like, yep, I'm good to go.
Yep.
And they just know, like,
them strong ass women, homie. That's them Spartan women. Yeah. I'll tell you what, like, I will say, my wife, I love her to death. I think she's watching right now. I hope she's not. But my wife, like, I love her, and she will gripe and bitch and moan just like any other woman in your life, gentlemen. Just like any other woman in your life, she will be upset, but not about this stuff. The second that she looks at my face and I'm like, hey, this is a serious one, she's like, all right, I got it locked down. Don't you ask another word. You go pack that bag. You go get out the door. You got to go do something. You go. And I got it. And I'll tell you, like, every strong operator that is married has a wife that's behind him like that and has a family that's behind him like that. That's like, hey, we get it. We got by. Go. Maybe only you can fix this problem.
And I'll tell you what, man, like, it crossed my mind after this. Sorry, Jay.
My wife, man. Go ahead, Jay. Go ahead. Finish.
But I was like, man, I might need to, because me and the wife talked about it. It was like, man, like, we didn't think this was going to happen. But in the midst of it, I was like, man, maybe I need to create like a organization, like a 501c type organization, to where when shit like this happens, like, we can just react. You know what I mean? Right. Now, I know there's guys currently doing it, but those guys have to come out all the way out of Florida to come to Western North Carolina to do this. So I was like, man, like, I know there's a bunch of meat eaters around the corner, like right here at Bragg. I was like, man, we need to unite some of those dudes and get something pretty similar going down here and have those resources on hand for when that biblical type, incident does take place. You know what I mean? But yeah, so that's definitely in the back of my mind, man, because I can always, being on social media, I could tie it to whatever we got going on to help raise funds and to have all those proper equipment on standby, whether it's helicopters, planes. We can just have that sitting there for when we got to go. So that's definitely something that I'm thinking through, because this opened my eyes a lot. Like, again, like, my wife went to App State, you know what I mean? Like, that's in Boone. That's like right up. Well, that place got hit pretty hard too, right? So it's personal for her. Like, I used to drive up there every weekend when we were dating to go hang out down there. You know what I mean? Like Chimney Rock and all those places that no longer exist. So yeah, it's definitely eye-opening. You know what I mean, Jake?
Right.
No, I was just gonna say, like Aaron, you're talking about our wives, man. Like, my wife, like, I told her what I needed in the dossier. I came home. She had a whole dossier set up, all in Ziploc bags, right? She's like, hey, you got to fold the paper this way. Boom, it's all in a Ziploc bag. Another thing I put on my list is waterproof printer paper, right? Because you can get waterproof printer paper that works pretty good. It doesn't smudge. But here's the funny thing. So it was like 9:00 last night, and somebody called me about something, and I was talking about, like, yeah, if we go to World War III, kind of transitioning into the question in the chat, right? We go to World War III, like, I'm gonna go be like carrier, just like a carrier for airplanes, right? Like, fly C-17s across the coast, whatever they need me to fly, I'm gonna go fly. And I said, so my wife was listening to me, and I said, yeah, maybe I'll go back in and drive ships, right? Like, I'll be a ship driver, because I can't be a SEAL no more. I'm 52, I can't keep up.
Oh, I said you could. Sure, you could.
Listen what the wife said. The wife got out the phone. She said, "You really believe that shit?" I was like, "What?" She was like, "Fuck out of here. You need a gun. You need to be in the dirt. You need to be with troops. You being selfish." That's what she said to me.
Strong ass women.
You being selfish. I said, "Damn, I could get killed out there." She said, "If we're gonna win the fucking war, I need your ass with fucking troops." I said, "Well, fuck. All right." Like, I just kind of was like,
Man,
okay.
The HH6 got you on that one, homie. You got outranked by your wife.
I'm going to North Carolina tomorrow to find your fucking uncle. So
HH6 Zwig actual had to lay down the law on that shit. Yeah, she hit you with that 01. She's coming in to 0. Hey, this is Zwig 01 telling you to cut the shit.
But it's crazy though, because, like, we all got wives, and we're like, we fucking look over there, and I know I got a fucking savage ass wife. She's just a lot smarter than me, right?
Right.
But then every now and then she just let you behind the curtain a little bit. You like, oh shit, like, god damn, like, fuck, But yeah, she punched me in the face 2 nights ago. So
yeah, but I'll tell you what, even we need it. Like, sometimes we do need it, because it's easy to get bogged down in this stuff. The question about, man, I'd love to really dive deep into the problems with Israel and Hezbollah and Iran and how close are we to going over there and all this other stuff. But I got to be honest with you, man, my heart's just not there. My heart is in talking about Americans and talking about how it is that we can fix these problems right now. Like, hey, I'm sorry, and this may come off as cynical, but man, North Carolina is not in the northern part of Israel. Okay, no. These relations that we're worrying about right now, they are not international relations. This is a domestic issue inside of the United States of America. That's what it means. And I know some people are going to get upset at this. That's what it means to put America first. That's what it means to put Americans first. We owe North Carolina, everybody in the country right now. You should be turning off your Instagram. You should be stopping your commenting on this BS about, AIPAC owns everybody, and that's why nobody, and the lithium mines in North Carolina, BlackRock bought 90 million of them, and suddenly there's a hurricane, and they steer the hurricane with HARP. Like, listen, guys, you want to talk about that shit? Fine. Go write it down in a little note while you're giving your level best to mail some supplies to a good organization. Papa, thank you very much from the chat. CERT, CERT, is a good place to start. It's an all volunteer and helps bridge the gap between first responders and regular citizens. I'll try to find CERT on the webpage, but that's one of the organizations that Papa said was a good place to start for people that are out there doing the job. Now, Jay, I do agree with you. And I think we've talked about this kind of before, but man, I look at these things, and my friend Dan Holloway over at Citizen Pod, Drinking Bros, Dan is famous in my mind for saying, and this is a long time ago, is like, you look at the government and you figure out what they can't do, and then you do it yourselves, and then you box them out. If there was ever If there was ever a condemnation of FEMA, if there was ever a condemnation of government response, this is it, because that's exactly what these citizens are doing. Now, the government's going to try to maintain control of that. And from a command and control standpoint, or from some sort of continuity of care standpoint, got it, cool. None of that is the point. These citizens are finding a way to box the government out and then finding a way to help their fellow man so that you don't need big daddy government to come in there, because it always comes with strings, and anything that they take from you, they're never giving back. When I look at situations like this, I just can't help but apply it to my actual, and we talked about it earlier, I can't help but apply it to my actual local environment. Where are the people? Can I find a plumber? Can I find an electrician? Can I find a pilot? Can I find somebody that can drive CDL? Can I find somebody that is a good medic? Can I find somebody that is a doctor? Can I find somebody that can provide some of the, is a survival expert? Am I prepared enough? Is a question that also, and I want to turn it over to you, Jake, here, but I know you did a lot of thinking about this, not just from the tactical level of like, hey, do I have a phone bag or do I have whatever, but you saw it from the people on the ground. There are people on the ground that are not doing too bad, but it's those people that have like diesel generators. There are people that are doing okay because they have ability to get to high ground, or they had some idea of how to be prepared. How important is preparation to you, especially in the context of these sort of things?
So I'm going to tell you right now, like I was, like I said, I was about 99% prepared. I had everything I needed. I had it somewhat organized, but I had taken my go bag apart when I went to Montana this year for Christmas, which is 10 months ago. That's unacceptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was able to throw everything together really quickly, and I got a toolbox that has all my electronics and everything in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I pulled my GPS out, put the batteries in, went outside. It worked fine. Everything was good. I only have one left because the other one rotted away with batteries a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But the preparedness, in my opinion, is the number one thing. Like if you're not prepared, you don't have a chance.
Sorry about that, boys.
You're good, Jay. But
You're
here's
good,
the one thing, Aaron, that I was going to say, because I think to your point and Jay's point of having a tribe around you, that is one of the most important things. Because I'm gonna tell you something in Champaign that blew my mind. Okay, so I'm in a really nice neighborhood. We done spent 6 years living well below our means on $19,000 a year coaching, and I got a good job at Illinois. I bought a big ass house. Okay, the neighbor on east side of me were professors, Chinese family from China, and then a Greek family from Greece. Okay. My neighbor across the street lived in that house for 15 years, said, Jake, I'm glad you're on this street. I said, what do you mean? He said, I think we're the only two houses that have guns. I said, really? And he went down there. So there's like 15 houses on each side, 30 houses. He went down to each house. They don't have a gun. They don't have a gun. They don't have a gun. Professor, whatever, no guns. Okay. And it hit me right there. I only got one other guy with a gun, and I got my 5 shooters in my house. And I said, And that's when I was like, and that was one of the first days I moved in the house. I was like, I'm not staying here. Like, I'm not staying in, no way. And then I ran into the Green Beret at a wrestling tournament, and I saw he had a tattoo. I said, man, you a Green Beret? He said, yeah, man. I said, well, this is what I used to do. We had a conversation. I said, listen, man, I need a place to go. He said, listen, I'm holed up 30 miles outside of town. I got a fortress built. Come on. And so like,
here's how we're going to do friendly force link up. Here's what I expect to see from you.
Yep, and my thing is in the middle of the cornfields, open fields of fire for miles.
Yep.
You got to get that tribe built if you don't have one.
Yeah, I can't talk to how important it is. Is there anything else we want to hit? We're going to keep this one nice and tight. Good hour, a good live. We've got 82 in the chat, up to 95 today. It was fantastic watching across all platforms. Jay, we did have one question about the Green Beret Chronicles. Somebody asked, what happened to the Green Beret Chronicles? I wasn't aware that you shut it down. What happened?
You shut it down?
Nothing happened. I didn't shut it.
Yeah, just one question from Seth Q14. What happened to Green Beret Chronicles? Well, that's Jay. I don't know if you're saying he's just got an internet wireless problem right now, but other than that,
what do you mean? Maybe whenever my phone dropped off, maybe that's what they're talking about. But my channel is fine.
Yeah, my channel's doing good. Cowboy, I live here in Western Carolina. What happened here is very bad. The citizens are grouping together to make things work. And again, this is the white pill that we're talking about. This is the hope that you see in this time of division, these October surprises that are going to continue to happen all the way for the run up to the election. Just remember, let this crystallize in your moment that in moments of tragedy, we really are the same people. There are no divisions of, and it's as cheesy as it sounds, man. There is no race, there is no religion, there's no sexual orientation. There are American citizens who want to help out other American citizens in times of need, and that's all you need.
Yeah. And again, folks, make sure you keep Western Carolina in your prayers. Again, donate to the cause so we can get these guys the help that they need. We appreciate. Again, this is a short one, but Jake, good seeing you, brother. Always fun. We need to figure it out, man.
Nothing but love to you, Jay. I really appreciate you driving over, man. Like it meant the world to me. And, obviously, friendships are built on actions. You know what I'm saying? Like I tell everybody, like I got 10 dudes from first grade. I could call any one of them dudes and like, hey man, this is what I need. And I've gotten those calls from them dudes, right? Like, hey Jake, man, like I'll be there in 12 hours, right? Like, so I just appreciate that, man. And you know what it means. Aaron knows what it means. Ben's not here, but I know I talked to Ben this morning. He knows what it means. Like, I agree with you 1,000%. Like your tribe, is the number one thing. And I tell people like wolves hunt in a pack because they win in a pack. Lone wolves get killed.
Nope. Absolutely. Yeah, the strength of the pack is the wolf, and the strength of the wolf is the pack. Rudyard Kipling, we've known that forever. A couple questions from the chat. I'm going to put this one up to you, Mr. Jake Zwig. Navy SEALs or Marine Raiders?
For what? Like,
listen, man, I just read the question.
I'm going to say this, like the Marine Corps screwed itself when it didn't become the premier reconnaissance force for the United States military. They were given that opportunity early on with the formation of MARSOC. They told SOCOM they didn't want that role. And so now they're in this role where no one want to give them any work. So, and it takes forever to get to SOCOM, and it's very small. And why would you not go in the Army where there's 100,000 special forces dudes? Like, it doesn't make any sense to me.
There's a lot of talks. There were a lot of talks because for people that don't understand, like, Big Marine Corps never wanted MARSOC.
No,
because to them,
they didn't. They had force recon, and it was they were like, no, I got recon.
Yeah, because to them, it's like you don't need a specialized force within a specialized force.
Right. That's it.
So when MARSOC stood up, there was a lot of bitterness, and the MARSOC guys were fucking being dicks down at Camp Lejeune because they were like, "Oh, I'm MARSOC, I'm Special Forces," and the generals were like, "Okay."
The Marines were not having it.
We're going to have the last word. Yeah, we're going to let this global war and terrorism phase pass, and eventually we're just going to shut you guys down. So there's been talks about force reduction within SOCOM. And then SOCOM is asking everybody, hey, we need to cut budget, we need to cut costs. And the Marine Corps is like, hey, take MARSOC. We never really wanted them. Just take them. Cut them.
Nobody really asked us for this. Like, that's the thing, is like nobody asked for the means to come up with MARSOC. It was not born out of a problem, right? Like all these other special operations force, PJs, you need people to go rescue people. The Air Force is like, oh, we have preponderance of planes, so I guess we'll go do that. And then they're like, oh, and JTACs, well, airmen understand the ground to air link probably better than anybody else. So the preponderance of JTACs probably should live in the Air Force too. That makes sense. That came out of a problem statement. There was no problem statement for the Marines. They just made it because they were the only service that didn't have a special operations contingent, and they wanted a seat at the table. I will say, when questions get posed to us, and I always boil it down to brass tacks. Man, don't ask me about MARSOC. Don't ask me about the Navy SEALs. Brother, you're not going to make it. I'm going to tell you straight up, statistics, and don't even start talking to me about PJ. That's a 91% attrition rate. Like, okay, so let's talk about, do you want to be in the Navy or do you want to be in the Marine Corps? Because when you fail out, and I'm sorry to sound like a dickhead, but you're going to fail out. Statistically speaking, only 9% of folks for our specific career fields make it through. So when they're like, should I go Air Force or should I go Army Rangers? I'm like, well, I don't know. Do you want to work for the Army or do you want to work for the Air Force? Because there's a distinct possibility that you're not going to get into that special operations thing. You're going to go to the fleet, or you're going to go to a boat, or you're going to go to 20 Palms, or you're going to go to these things. So you need to really think, number one, which service branch do I want to work for when this doesn't work out? Because I know everybody, all 66 of you living in the chat right now, I know that you're going to die before you quit. I know that you're going to come back on your shield before you would ever come back, carry blah, 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 blah. I get it. Yeah, you're fucking insane, dude. Like, be an adult and think about it. And if you like, if you don't mind living in the freaking Marines, okay, well then go try for MARSOC. And then you got to look at mission set. Like, do you even know what MARSOC does versus the Navy SEALs? Because I bet you don't. I bet you can't understand or explain to me the difference between Operation the littoral space as opposed to the true underwater or maritime space. I bet you can't tell me whose job it is to do a VBSS versus some sort of standoff capability where you'll have to provide IR to another force and provide forward observer duties. Like, those are distinctly different things. And you're just like, well, which one's cooler? Which one should I go to? I mean, again, number one, you're probably not going to make it. And then number two, well, where do you want to work when this fails? We do have a super chat. I want to say, hey, thanks, Alf of Hip Hop Slam. Thank you very much for this super chat and the super questions. Greetings, Jay. When the base name change started happening, was there ever talk about changing Bragg to a name of a highly decorated Green Beret instead of Fort Liberty? That's a great question.
Yeah. I know so Roy Benavidez was being thrown around. For a couple of different bases. I think it was Bragg, and then there was also Fort Hood. So there were a couple of names being thrown around as far as SF guys go, and Benavidez, from my understanding, was at the very top of the list. But again, Fort Liberty came about because they couldn't really figure out which one to go with, because it was Benavidez, there was a couple of other names, and the panel, they were just bickering back and forth. And then this lady was like, well, how about Liberty?
Randy Shugart too. Like, man, I'll tell you what, that'd be great.
Yeah, and this lady was like, well, what about Liberty? Like freedom, liberty, and all that, justice for all. And then that's how Fort Liberty came about, right? And then just to hit on what Aaron said to the individual in the chat. So I get this question all the time over at my channel. Hey, which brand should I go to? Like, I don't mind answering that question, but I'm a realist. If you're asking that question, more than likely you're not going to make it. That's just the reality of it, right? Because you don't need me to tell you which branch. You should already know that shit. You should already know, like, hey, that's the hill that I'm going to die on, right? I don't mind fielding it, but in the back of my mind, I'm already thinking like, okay, if you can't figure out which branch to join, like, don't waste your time. Like, don't even go. Because I can tell you, okay, well, go be a Green Beret. Just because I said go be a Green Beret is that reason why you're going to go be a Green Beret? Like, when you're getting kicked in that balls 100 times over, or you're going to, like, that, you're going to revert to, oh, I'm only here because Jay told me to come here. And you're just going to quit, right? So, guys, dig deep and figure that out yourself instead of asking us. You know what I mean? That's what I got to say on that note.
Yep. Yeah, and I think it's even more. Oh, so hang on real quick. I think it's even more linear than that. You want to go special operations and have a gun and do bad things, then you got two choices. You got the Marine Corps or you got the Army, because they both have huge infantry contingencies. And I know this, like, the baddest dude I know is an E6 in the Carolina National Guard and did 3 combat deployments, full 1-year bangers, and was kicking doors in and doing work just as if any special operations was doing it. And he was a regular old National Guard infantry E6. So, you got two choices. You want to be in special operations, you got two choices. You got the Army and the Marine Corps. And I tell everybody, like, I'd rather practice in the Army in an infantry unit and have a couple chances to go to RASP or the AFAS or whatever it is than throw all my dice into, I'm going to be a Navy SEAL and now I'm chipping paint, or I'm going to be a PJ and I'm standing gate guard for 6 years. So
you're going to be an outstanding airman. You'll be outstanding by a plane. You'll be outstanding by a gate. You'll be outstanding by the guards. You'll be outstanding. But I'll tell you what, it won't be what you want to do. Yeah. Trying to look through the chat and see if anything else is popping up here. I got one from Wabba Biba. That's hilarious. Did you guys approach special ops having a backup plan if you didn't make it? Well, yeah, because I'm an adult, right? This having no plan B, giving yourself, listen, burn the boats is all tight to say, like, no backup plan until you realize that you're burnt and you have no support and then you're going to die anyway, right? Like, so like that's all tight to say, right? And like I get the intent behind it, right? Give yourself no out so that you don't have that mental escape. I got it. If you go in to any special operations career field pipeline, if you apply to any of these and you don't have a very well thought out backup plan, you're an idiot. That is not appropriate. That's not how we play. It's not how we play. I'll tell you what, that's the last time. If you go into special operations without a backup plan and somehow you make it, that'll be the last time you do anything without a plan. That's not how we look for professionals that are able to plan and then plan for contingencies. And then when those two plans fall apart in the very first 5 minutes of your mission, you need to be able to plan on the fly and come up with a backup plan, and then a backup plan to that backup plan. When people look at me and they're like, I'm not going to give myself the out of having a backup plan, I'm like, well, you're exactly the candidate that we don't want. Because what happens when that doesn't work out?
Now, I think it's twofold, right? Because you hear all the motivational speakers out there say, hey, don't have a backup plan because you're just going to revert back to that backup plan, right? But that's where mental toughness and all the other ingredients come into play. We're not saying have a backup plan because you're just going to get the selection and quit, and now you go to plan B. We're saying is, hey, you can go through 28 days of selection and be a 28-day non-select, right? And then what are you going to do, right? You can do everything right that's within your power and still not get selected, right? So you got to look at it from
same in the Air Force too, baby. Yeah, same in the Air Force. You can get all the way to, just because you didn't quit and just because you show up doesn't mean that you could be the world's dumbest, worst teammate that just happens to be super physically fit and is too dumb to stop doing what they're doing. Great. That's not who we need. So you could be I get messages from non-selects all the time. They're like, dude, I totally made it through and it was great. And then the psychs told me that I wasn't able to like make it on team. So I guess I'm a non-select. That's pretty fucked up, right? I'm like, no, it sounds like you were a bad teammate. It sounds like they saw something in you that isn't conducive to making mission success. So what are you going to do in the Air Force? They're like, well, I don't even want to be in the Air Force. Then why'd you try to be a PJ? Because you're going to the Air Force.
So I would say like understand the difference between the two, right? Like there's a difference between, hey, like planning ahead. Like for me, like I always knew like what my next two jobs were going to be. I knew, hey, once I'm done being a regular dude on the team, I wanted to do the team sergeant job and then first on job. And then after the first on job, I was like, yep, I'm going to get out and I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. So I was always planning ahead, right? Now, when I went to selection, I wasn't thinking about, what I was going to do after selection because I'm in the moment. Like I'm performing, right? And God forbid selection didn't work out. Guess what? I already knew what my other courses of actions were going to be. So I would say like understand the difference between don't go in there blind and say SF is it. And then you don't make it and then everything falls apart. Like be a realist. You know what I mean? Like
I'm going to say it a little differently. So Special Forces was my backup plan.
Yeah.
Nice.
And so I was at the Naval Academy. I finished second in the screener. I'm the first black qualified officer in 6 years at the Naval Academy. I'm going to Buds. No, you ain't. Okay. In a million years, I was like, I knew I was getting selected. I crushed it. Okay. I didn't get selected. I was in a lot of trouble. I had a bunch of shit, had a rap sheet a mile long. They were like, he ain't mature enough. Okay. I didn't eat for 3 weeks. I came up with a new plan, right? I got to go to this ship. I got to get qualified. I got to be the best sailor in the world. I got to dominate, and then I'm going to get the Buds. I went and did a bunch of stuff in the back end that was hella corrupt. It was awesome. I did all special operations shit to make sure I got to leave the next day after graduation. I got, I had a Margaret, who I love, said, hey, as soon as your package hits my desk, I'm picking it up. I had everything done. But then I had to go execute an 18-month plan to actually get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, when I showed up to Buds, cats are like, oh, this, that, and the other. I said, listen, bro, I was a fucking college wrestler. I won a state championship. I had to fucking sacrifice and persevere and do so much shit to get here. I didn't show up to Buds and was like, oh my God, I might not make it. I was like, fuck, this shit is fun, bro. I'm having a blast out here. Like, I'm going to crush this shit. Were there some times that I had to call Jesus and everybody else to get through some shit? Absolutely. Was it the hardest thing I had to do because it was 10 months long? Absolutely. But here was my backup plan. I didn't have a backup plan. I didn't burn the ships at the shore because I was an officer in the Navy. The worst thing that was going to happen to me was I'm going to go back to a fucking ship for 2 or 3 years. I'm going to get out of the Navy. I'm going to go to business school just like I did, just like Jay said. I had a long-term plan, but there was no downside risk to me. I'm going to SEAL training. I'm going to kill it. And if I don't make it, like I never once thought I wouldn't make it. It was more so like, well, I'll tackle that when I tackle it, but I'm an officer in the Navy, so it's not like I'm going to chip paint. You know what I'm saying? Like I had a solid plan and I was starting on great footing. And so I think that's important for people to understand. Like, don't go say, I'm going to go be an Army Ranger, and then you don't get Army Rangers and you get to 82nd and now you're being pissy. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to be an 82nd. I want to be an Army Ranger. Like, bro, you doing the same job. Like you in the same, like for me, I just like being in the military. Like it was fun in the Navy, right? Mm-hmm. And if I was driving a ship, like everybody asked me, like I was on the worst ship in the Navy and I had the time of my life. Like it was the best experience. I learned a ton of leadership.
It's all perspective.
Like, you know, I was trying to get the SEALs, man. I had to make the most of it. And dude, how easy is it to shine? Out of 16 officers on my ship, the 4 JOs hadn't been fired and the CO and the XO hadn't been fired. Everybody else in the middle had been fired at least once. My first lieutenant, my first lieutenant had been fired twice. And so it was like, bro, like, I mean, but I want people to understand, like, I'm falling from O2 to O2 in some other job. I wasn't falling from O2 to E1, you know, painting rocks. And I think a lot of people miss that when they pick a service, like in the Air Force, you go be a PJ and you don't make it, and now you're standing gate guard. There's a big difference between gate guard and being a PJ. There's a big difference.
Yeah. And no, I have a ton of security forces friends. There's a ton of security forces dudes that follow the podcast. Some of those dudes do great work. Some are complete and total shitbags, right? This is not a desecration of anybody's career field, but I was the person that failed out the first time and then had no idea what I was going to do. And by just the grace of God, I got a great job that had a great amount of people. And then I was able to go back and make it through, right? I think, to provide a little bit of context or nuance or whatever it is to my comments, like you should have a backup plan. You should have some idea of the jobs that you want to do, some idea of the process. You should at least know, hey, when I fail, what's going to happen? Like you should be able to tell me, hey, I know that if I don't get selected, they're going to give me an opportunity to go and pick some jobs and I'm going to be needs of the Air Force, but I can go to different jobs. What jobs are, the most open during this time period? What jobs can I possibly get? I will tell you, the second that I made it through INDOC, the second that I was in the pipeline though, I was full speed ahead. I was not thinking about failing free fall school. I was not contingency planning, failing out of dive school or not being able to get through the pipeline. At that point, man, I was all in, right? You get through that selection heavy piece and you get through that first part, just like you're saying, Jake. And maybe that's the time to be like, nah, F it, full speed ahead. Like, this is the thing. Yeah, INDOC and the pipeline, I think I was in the pipeline for like 22 months or something, or 19 or 21 months or something. Hardest time of my life, evaluated every single day, death-defying antics and hilarious hijinks abound, right? But during that time, I wasn't thinking. I think that's what we're trying to get at here is like, you got to be present, you got to be in the moment, and you got to be all in. You can't be all in if you're worried about the next thing. So you make your plan, you go, and just like somebody in the chat said, combat sports, you have, everybody has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Man, I 100% agree with that. And you just gotta be ready to be punched in the mouth, and you got to be ready to flex. But it's inappropriate to just be like, nope, I'm going to be a combat controller in the Air Force, and that's it. No, the fuck it ain't, homie. I can tell you statistically, no, the fuck it is not. And then to be a combat controller that gets qualified as a JTAC and goes and has these deployments, whatever else, that's statistically impossible if you looked at it just on paper, right? And there's only the select few that get through. Like that just is what it is. You have to be present. You have to be ready for every single day. And if you're thinking about what if during an evaluation, I'll tell you the easiest way to fail an evaluation in the pipeline is be thinking about what if you fail it while you're taking it. I've seen students do it. I've seen them thinking through. I can see them start to like freak out, or when a student shows up to a reeval. I was the first. You usually only get 2 shots inside the pipeline. You fail once and you get 1 refire. You come back to me and you're allowed to, hey, you had a bad day yesterday. Fine. I'm going to run this evaluation for you again. You need to tell me, what were you thinking about last night? Were you thinking about crushing this, or were you thinking about what's going to happen if you're going to fail? And I'll tell you what, 9 times out of 10, the students were like, I'm thinking about what's happening if I fail. Those, I can't remember the exact quote. Somebody find it for me and put it in the chat. But those that think they can and those that think they can't are oftentimes right. Each one of them is right. And if you think you can, you're present, you're in the moment, and you're trying to refire the event and do well, you're probably right. And if you think you can't because you're worried about what's happening next, that's where we're saying that second guessing and that looking down the road, that's where we're saying it's inappropriate.
Absolutely, big dog. Hey,
Hell
man,
yeah.
this one was different now. We lit some fire in here today, brother.
We did. I think that's going to be oh, we got another one. Can we hear y'all's take on today's geopolitical situation with Ukraine and Israel, the 101st being deployed to the Middle East? Man,
We covered that.
I think that
we covered that.
I think so. I think we did.
Aaron, listen, man. Aaron said earlier on, and I can't, we focus on America right now. I don't have time to worry about the political, geological shit when half of Western Carolina is a damn war zone in itself. I don't have time to worry about Ukraine. I don't have time to worry about Israel, Iran. Listen, here's what I'm going to tell everybody. I told everybody that's calling me about it. If we're going to go to World War III, you will know about it.
Right.
And when it happens, we will adjust accordingly because we're America. And one thing that we know how to do in America, and I hate to say it this way, but it's what popped into my head. We know how to shoot Indians and kill redcoats. Okay. That's what we know how to do in America. So if you think that we're not going to go across the world and stomp the crap out of whoever needs stomp crap it out of, okay, then you got the wrong country. But right now we got some internal problems going on in Western Carolina, Georgia, Florida, right? Like some people need some help in America. Like I don't have time to worry about Israel and all that stuff. I'm not worried about it at all. Like right now, after having been in North Carolina and seen what's going on, I can't worry about none of that stuff. I got stuff in America I got to worry about.
Yeah, you're right, brother. You're right. Couple more questions from the chat. Who you got tomorrow, Roundtree or Chama? I got Roundtree. Khalil's going to win that one. I know that's probably not a popular choice, but I think it is. Good live today, guys. Thanks, Mason. Hey, everybody that's out there right now, throw us a thumbs up in the chat. We appreciate you guys, following us and showing up every time that we show up live. If you guys could do us a favor, when you see the reels, share that out. Share that out to your friends. Go ahead and do the 4 things you're supposed to. Like, share, save, comment. They really do help us out. It's free. It costs nothing of your time and nothing of your money. It would really, really benefit us to get in front of more people and have a bigger chat where you guys, the day ones, can start wrecking shop and saying the shit that Jake normally says to people. I'd love to see that in the chat. I think we're good for here. Aaron, no, I don't know what that means. Just no. Thanks, Mason. I really want to say thanks to everybody that come out and no Chama. Thanks, Mason Young. Hey, we'll agree to disagree. Gentleman's bet on Chama. We will see what happens. But Khalil Roundtree, I think this is finally the time for him to shine. The styles make fights. I think Roundtree has a good shot at it, so we'll see. But man, from Jake, from Jay, from Ben, who was off in the world doing Batman things. You've never seen Bruce Wayne and Ben Pappas in the same room, and there's a reason why. Man, we just want to say thank you. We want to say we'll put it out on the War Room, so keep an eye on the War Room IG. We're going to get some sort of fundraiser. We're going to get something. The War Room is going to match whatever donations it is that you guys can make towards North Carolina. Jay is obviously living out there, and Jake has connective tissue as well. To all my brothers that are living out in North Carolina, man, you guys are doing good work with the rescues, and I understand that you guys are in a bad way right now, but we love you. We're sending out all the love, and we are hyper focused on helping American citizens because that's what we do as American citizens. That's what America First means. So, man, thanks for everybody to coming out. Please like, subscribe, share the page out both on YouTube and on the Instagram. Make sure you're liking, saving, commenting, and sharing this stuff with your friends. If you want more people to see it, we would love to talk in front of more people. We'll get back to our normal kind of battle rhythm next week. We'll hit a couple topics. There'll be some funny ones. There'll be some reactions. There'll be some other stuff. And we'll talk about world events. But right now, we're hyper-focused on helping these Americans out. And that's what we wanted the theme of the show to be today. Jake, I'm going to turn it over to you for close, brother.
Hey, man, I just want everybody to take a second. Think about the guy that lives next door to you, the guy that lives on the other side of you. Always remember we're Americans first. I know we've kind of gotten into this divisive culture in America, driven by a couple of the parties and some other political crap. But at the end of the day, man, like one thing we know how to do in America is fight, whether that's fight Mother Nature, whether that's fight, people or in tyranny. Like we ain't got no problem fighting, man. One of the things that I learned when I go overseas, and I've been to all these countries overseas, most of the world don't like to fight. Like the Scandinavian countries like to fight, but like for the most part, the rest of the world don't want to fight. And the farther you get, yeah, man. And so like, never forget that we good at busting heads open. That's what we good at. And whether that's on, this hurricane or whatever else, I just want everybody to take a second, man, and understand that we got to live for the American next to us and not a bunch of geopolitical stuff, not a bunch of craziness. Aaron's going to say we got to get out there and vote. Like, we got to get out there and vote, man. Like, I don't care who you vote for. Just let your voice be heard. And then at the end of the day, man, try to be a good American, man. Try to help somebody, try to lift somebody up. buy somebody a water, you know what I'm saying? Buy a kid a candy bar, do whatever you got to do to help somebody next to you, and don't be a taker, be a giver.
Damn, be an asset, not a liability. Couldn't have said it any better. Thanks to everybody that's still in the chat and keeping it on. All the regulars, Aaron Love Hate Club, Mason Young, Deep Low, all those other folks. Hey, thanks again for coming out. We will see you next time. Remember, we're live every single Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. on the best coast, West Coast. We will see you next time. It'll be the full crew. We love y'all. Hey, go do something positive. Be an asset, not a liability this week, and find a way to help North Carolina. That's our charge and our call to action to you. We will see you next time.